Happy CHUSEOK and happy 中秋节. So welcome to fall, even though it doesn't look like it here because it's like 90 degrees in my room. And with fall comes a lot of new television shows, so this has been a pretty good week. If you're wondering why I'm wearing a hat, it's because I kind of need a haircut. And I see people wear hats in the gym indoors at night, so this is totally fine. So the first show I've come to love, surprisingly, is The Muppets. Don't get me wrong, The Muppets are something I've loved since childhood. I'm a huge Miss Piggy fan and I've watched like most of the recent movies, so I didn't expect the show to be like that funny or that relatable to my past favorite shows. So if you're a fan of 30 Rock or Parks and Recreation, it's actually kind of like a combination of both. It has like the 30 Rock setting with the Parks and Recreation format. Miss Piggy is basically Jenna and I live for Jenna, so it's like worlds colliding. And then Kermit is like Liz Lemon because he runs the show Piggy stars in. And then Scooter is like Kenneth. But Miss Piggy and Carl are my favorite. And if you want to watch a funny old Miss Piggy video, you should watch the Desperate Housewives one. Or just skip to the scene where she fights with Ava Longoria. That one's really funny. And then on America's Next Top Model, I thought the shoe was nice. And the Bayo thing was planned. And then on Project Runway, I felt like this week's episode was like the least creative when it came to like the challenge because they have like too much freedom. And like it had like no sponsors. So like the Fighting Neverland thing was like so random. Yes, that's how I can explain it. I thought the outfits were nice, but they weren't something to like rave over. But since we're on the subject of Finding Neverland, the musical, you should totally look up the soundtrack, especially What You Mean to Me by J-Lo and Trey Songz, or the original one from the original cast. They're both really good. And they're both really different. And there's the song Finding Neverland by Zendaya. I like that version over the original one. In my opinion, I think that one's better. And then, with what I was looking most forward to this week, How to Get Away with Murder and Empire. Well, aside from the spoilers, I must say that it was hard to remember what exactly happened last, so it took a while. But aside from the main shocks that everyone was talking about, I would just talk about Connor and Oliver. It's like their relationship got so much more deep, and yeah. I don't know, I think it's just nice that there's a prominent Asian character in there that's not very stereotypical, and how like Connor is so hot and can get like other dudes but like stays loyal to him, and it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, if that could happen to them, it could happen to me, you know? But I guess the biggest shocker to me was how like Jean Grey was Annalise's girlfriend and how like Annalise is bisexual. That was like the biggest jaw-dropping moment for me, honestly. It wasn't even like the last scene that like had me shocked. Even though it did make me shocked, but like not as much as that makeout scene. Yeah. And then on to the premiere of Empire. That episode was so like dark and had me like on the edge of my seat, like wondering what will happen. And then Chris Rock's character was so like serious. It was weird but scary at the same time. What best sums up Jamal is in this meme. And I'm glad he's back together with his boyfriend, but his makeout scene was kind of hot, yet like, no. I don't know. Like, I thought that scene was hot, but if that were me, there's a certain time and place for that, and permission. And dinner time was not that time. And then judging from the preview of the season, I'm hoping Tiana would have a rival and that Tinashe would be her rival. I think it's perfect because Tinashe was a child actor, so it'll only be perfect that she would play that role, and she's like coming up with a new album and she really wants to like make it big, so I think it only seems right, but I don't know how her like team works, so. Moving on to comic books. The only new comic book I read this week was X-Men Years of Future Past, issue number 5. There's spoilers in this, there's spoilers in all my dongs, so be prepared. But I won't try to ruin the whole comic just by telling the whole thing, so I'll just tell some of those spoilers. So Cameron and Christina have different views of how the future should be dealt with. Cameron wants President Kelly dead, while Christina wants to coexist with President Kelly and the humans, and she has no other choice but to kill her own brother. But I'm sure he's not dead, it's too early for him to die. And then moving on to the cancelled X-Force series. Before I began reading this, I was hoping there was a good arc with Psylocke in it, since I'm a bigger fan of Psylocke in this more than anyone else, but that wasn't happening. I'm already towards the end and there's pretty much no feasible way. She's not in the forefront much, so if you're hoping to read about Psylocke, I would skip this. I'm like 4 issues away from finishing it, so hopefully the story doesn't end abruptly like Avengers World did. But since I'm done reading X-Force, I've been looking into other things to read, and one of the things that came up was Invader Zim, the comic. I loved the cartoon as a kid, and I saw some of the panels on Tumblr and I thought they were pretty funny, so I'm giving it a try. And then the last comic I'm going to talk about is something I actually read before. But since I have nothing to read soon, I'm going to start resuming it. And it is a New 52 Justice League, but it's not New 52 anymore, so it's just Justice League. But there's like 40 something issues, so I'm not sure how I'm going to talk about it, but I'm sure there's going to be some slow weeks where I can do that. And maybe convince someone else to read it too. I think the artwork's really nice, so it's going to be a pleasant read. I already read parts of it, so it's not like there's going to be any huge surprise. But I will say that the Throne of Atlantis arc is different from the movie. So if you watched the Justice League movie, Throne of Atlantis, you might want to read the actual comic because there are lots of scenes that are actually really different. Well, there you have it for Dongs this week. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow me elsewhere on social media. And I'll see you next week.